Welcome back to the Pylon Cam. It's your boy Mike, and I got a 2-round mock draft for you this week. I wanted to wait till after the Senior Bowl to get this next mock draft out because I knew a lot of things were going to change, a lot of rankings were going to change. But as always, if I say anything wrong about your team, please gently correct me in the comments. You won't hurt my feelings. This is just for us to learn and talk ball. So with all that being said, I'm going to kind of speed through the stuff that's the same as last week, or the same as the last video. And I'm going to kind of talk about some of these picks in bulk. And then the second round, we're going to kind of speed through it a little bit for the sake of time. I'm going to talk about some players I really want to hone in on. But with all that being said, let's go through the first 4 picks. Nothing's changed. It's still Caleb Williams. All the reports at the Senior Bowl is it would be a shock if the Bears trade out of pick 1. Now, I don't think that it would be a shock in the set. I don't think that this is smoke and mirrors. I think that there's no way they are trading out of Caleb Williams. I think that if you listen to the herd when Colin said one day he said that the Bears or Caleb does not want to go to the Bears, and then his camp was like, no, that's not true. There's an avenue for us to find success in Chicago. And I said it in the last video, and I said it again, and I'm going to do some research on this because I think I know I'm right about this. And the media has propped up quarterbacks to get all the success. They get all the credit when teams are winning, and they get all the blames when teams are losing. They are the most important player, but like I want to do research on which quarterbacks, of the 32 quarterbacks in the NFL, which ones were drafted to successful organizations at the time, and are they successful now? Because CJ Stroud, Joe Burrow are outliers in my opinion. I don't think that these kids could just come in and save franchises. I mean, ask any Jets fan how that's been going for the past 50 years. Look at Brock Purdy. Last pick of the draft comes in. Yeah, he's better than the last pick of the draft, but does anybody really think... I'm a huge Brock Purdy fan, but I'm just saying, like, there are a lot of quarterbacks that busted that if they went to the 49ers would have found success on that team and probably would still be playing in the NFL. Like, I do think, and people are going to laugh at this, but I think that if Sam Darnold had gone to the 49ers, was drafted to the 49ers, or if Mac Jones got drafted to the 49ers, they would be looked completely different than they are right now. Anyway, pick 2, sorry, I said we were going to go quick on these, but pick 2 is Drake May. I do think that if anything were to change at this moment in time, Jaden Daniels will go before Drake May. I think teams get enamored with flashes, so to speak, and I think this front office is aggressive, but it's also I'm trying to find the word to describe them, but I can't put a word on it right now, but I think that this front office is going to be pretty bold, and I think that they're going to view Jaden Daniels as more than what he is potentially, and view Drake May as less than what he is potentially. I know that doesn't really make sense, but I mean, we see it happen all the time in drafts. Like, always go back to the 2022 draft when Kayvon Thibodeau, unquestioned pick number 1, unquestioned number 1 overall pick, and then draft season comes around and he's pick number 1. December, January, people start to fall him down their draft, to drop him down their draft boards. The same thing happens with quarterbacks. I mean, it happens every year. So that's the only thing that I think would change from this. We're going to go with Jaden Daniels at 3. Nothing's changing here. And then at pick 4, it's still Marvin Harrison. I did want to mention this with the Bears. I think the 2 teams that are in contention for Justin Fields and are most likely to land Justin Fields, I really thought that, like, for a while the Vikings would be the best landing spot, which I still think it is, but they're never going to trade a potential franchise quarterback in division, because having a franchise quarterback sets your franchise up for success long term, and you're never going to risk doing that in division. The 2 teams that I think are in contentions for Justin Fields are the Steelers and the Raiders. Those 2 teams in my mind make the most sense given where they're drafting, who could potentially be available, and what they would have to give up to get Justin Fields, compared to, because that's kind of what I was thinking about when I was going through this draft, is Justin Fields better than this player that I'm about to take for certain franchises? And I think for the Raiders and Steelers in specific, if it does cost a second round pick for Justin Fields, he's better than a lot of players that were on the board. But anyway, pick 5 is the Chargers. This is gonna be a weapon, I think, or it's tough because with John Harbaugh or Jim Harbaugh there now. Every team he's ever coached has had such success in the trenches. They've always been successful trench units on offense and defense. The Chargers' offensive line right now is a disaster. And I said it in the first mock draft, and I still think it after the Senior Bowl. Trading out of this spot makes the most sense, even if it's back just one pick with the New York Giants, because you could still get Brock Bowers at 6. You could still get Rome Odunze at 6. I think the player you're gonna lose at 6 is Malik Neighbors. Or if you trade back to 6, is Malik Neighbors. I think Joe Alt will still be there. I think Olu Fashanu will still be there. All the players you could potentially want at 5 will be there at 6, with the exception of Malik Neighbors. I think that is who the Giants are going to go after. And I think a lot of people think like, oh, because Brock Bowers is a tight end, it's a bad pick. But look at all of the teams that were jockeying for the Super Bowl in the playoffs, and look at what tight ends they had. Mark Andrews, Travis Kelce, George Kittle, etc., etc. Brock Bowers is averaging, I saw this crazy stat. I'll link it in the description, but it was some crazy stat of like Brock Bowers is averaging more yards per contact than, or more yards after contact than Sam Laporta averaged per attempt, which is insane. That like people don't realize how good Brock Bowers is. The knock on Brock Bowers is he's not the best blocker, but he's still a really, really good blocker. So I know Chargers fans probably aren't going to like this pick, or they're getting tired of this pick. I still think it's the right pick. I'm sorry. I think it's the right pick. I think it's what they're going to do. They just hired a tight end coach. I think they actually just hired the Giants tight end coach, who has had success with his tight ends the past few years. Daniel Bellinger was playing way above his draft capital. Darren Waller was leading the leading tight ends in receiving yards before he got hurt and before Daniel Jones got hurt. But yeah, so the first 6 picks are still the same. I still think it's Malik Neighbors. I've moved Rome Odunze way up my draft board, as in way up at one spot. He's now solidified himself as wide receiver 3. We'll talk about him in a second. Titans at pick 7, still the same. It's still Olu Fashanu, even more so now with Bill Callahan there, because Bill Callahan is arguably one of the best, if not the best, offensive line coaches, and you're going to give him a prospect like Olu Fashanu. I'm seeing Olu Fashanu fall down boards, and I think this is the same thing that's happened with Kayvon Thibodeau in 2022. Like, this kid went from unquestioned OT1 potential top 5 pick to I've seen him at pick 18 in drafts, which is insane. There's no way this kid makes it out of the top 10. There's no way. His ceiling is way too high for a team to settle. I mean, teams do settle, but like settling for Joe Alt is one thing. Settling for like Talisi Fuaga, who is an animal, is a completely other thing. But with Atlanta at pick 8, I was wrong. I really thought Bill Belichick was going to Atlanta. Apparently, he wanted too much control. He wanted to operate like he was the GM, like he did with the New England Patriots, and Atlanta didn't want that. That's why they ended up going with Raheem Morris. That's everything I read. I also read that Atlanta was one team that was noted very upset when Jared Verse announced he was going back to school last year. I think Jared Verse is their pick here. I forgot who I went Dallas Turner last week. I still think it's edge, but I think with Jared Verse being their guy, then yeah, it makes sense to go Jared Verse. I still think it's too early to go QB inside the top 10. I think only 4 go in the first round. I'm going to be hard pressed to move off of that. The one that I think sneaks in is J.J. McCarthy. I really do think J.J. McCarthy. You see these quarterbacks who aren't the most dynamic find success, like Brock Purdy, and I love Brock Purdy. I'm just saying, like, let's look at Brock Purdy for what he is. Like, he's not the athlete Josh Allen is. Not many people are, but he's not even like the athlete like Jalen Hurts is or Daniel Jones is as an athlete. Like, people hear Daniel Jones and just see red. Like I'm saying, compare them as athletes. They're not even close. And Brock Purdy has found way more success than, I mean, I'm not going to say it. At pick 9, Rome Odunze. I think you're getting Caleb Williams. You have DJ Moore. Get him another weapon and, like, go on a run. I think Chicago's set up to go on a run. The more I look at this roster, the more I look at their money in free agency. Dude, Rome Odunze, go back and watch if you're like hesitant, like, oh, is Rome Odunze just one of these guys that is a big body contested catch guy, nothing else? No, Rome Odunze is like what people are thinking. I know people don't make this comparison, but they're thinking Keon Coleman is going to be Rome Odunze. Rome Odunze separates so well, like an underrated amount for because everybody sees Rome Odunze and they think 6'3", 6'4", contested catch guy, downfield, field stretcher. Like, no, like he separates, man, and he has such underrated long speed. Go back and watch Washington versus Oregon State. I remember I was at a restaurant with my wife. We were getting our Christmas tree, and we were at a restaurant, and this game was on, and Rome Odunze was going off. I mean, he was going nuts. He ended up, I think, with 7 catches, 106 yards, 2 touchdowns. The thing is, which makes this game so special to me, is imagine the Washington offense, how you're pitching it. Michael Penix just throwing the ball down the field 100 times. But imagine that in a monsoon. And then imagine Rome Odunze not dropping the ball. Like, this dude, like, I don't know, dude. He's I think at 9 is a steal, to be honest. Like, the more I've been studying Rome Odunze, the analytics are there, dude. And just go back and watch the Oregon State game. I'm telling you, go back and watch the Oregon State game. It'll blow your mind. Because it wasn't a drizzle. Like, I mean, it was a downpour. Like that. And honestly, credit to Michael Penix for throwing the ball that much down the field as much as he did. But anyway, Jets at pick 10. It's still Joe Alt. So I think our first 9 out of 10 picks are the same from last week. This is where we're going to get a little bit different. So I said last week for the Vikings that this is too rich for Bo Nix, and then took him with the next pick. We're going to take Bo Nix. Every report says that the Vikings and the Broncos are going to be trading up for a quarterback or trying to trade up into the top 3. It's not going to happen. Nobody is trading out of the top 3. The only way I see someone trading out of the top 3... Actually, let me put it this way. I think if the first 3 picks aren't quarterback, 3 of the first 4 picks will be quarterback, because New England will stick and pick Marvin Harrison Jr., and Arizona will trade out. And that 4th pick will be the quarterback that fell. That's where you enter Vikings or Broncos or Giants or insert team here. Maybe even Seattle. I don't know. I think Bo Nix is just as good of a fit to Minnesota as he is Denver. Because the thing with Denver, everybody thinks like, oh, well, Bo Nix would be such a good fit for Denver because he'll play well in Sean Payton's system. Sean Payton just wants a facilitator, da-da-da-da. I was one of the first people on the Bo Nix to the Broncos train. Go look at when the mock drafts came out and look at when my mock draft came out. Bo Nix to Minnesota makes just as much sense if you look at where Kevin O'Connell comes from, and you look at that Rams offense, which he helped design, and look at what Matt Stafford does. Matt Stafford makes maybe 2 or 3 Matt Stafford plays a game where he's just incredible. Bo Nix will do the same thing. I mean, Bo Nix, like, everybody hates Bo Nix because he didn't pop till late, and you go back and look at the Auburn tape, and it's terrible. But go look at Bo Nix as an athlete in those Auburn games, because he made some crazy plays where he's extending plays, moving out of the pocket, finding the open man downfield, but he also made some terrible plays at Auburn. Then he finds structure in Oregon. Did those abilities just vanish? No. He just learned how to control them, which is something Caleb Williams is going to have to do. Like, that's what separates elite quarterbacks from great quarterbacks, is being able to operate the offense, operate the system, and then go be great when you have to. That's why Patrick Mahomes is such an alien. But anyway, that's enough about that. Let me just pull up, make sure I'm not forgetting anything. Yeah, so I also thought about edge here, because last mock draft we went Byron Murphy. Danielle Hunter, are you going to extend him? DJ Wonham, are you going to extend him? Probably not. You have $26 million in cap space, so if you extend Danielle Hunter, that's going to eat up at least 3/4 of that potentially. I also could have went corner, but I think that Bo Nix at 11, just the more I thought about it, makes more and more sense. Now, for the Broncos, that leaves Dallas Turner on the board. That's where we're going next. Arguably edge one in the class. I took him last week at pick 8, or last mock draft at pick 8. But just finding out that Atlanta's guy is apparently Jared Verse made me flip-flop him. So there's that. And then the Raiders at pick 13. I still think this is Byron Murphy. I think that you could make the case for Johnny Newton. I just think Byron Murphy's that good. I think he's still a top 15 pick. And if you look at how Daniel Jeremiah does his mock draft 1, it's always based off of what he's hearing in the league. And for Byron Murphy to go at pick 12 or 11, he had him go to the Vikings. That tells me that Byron Murphy is okay to take in the top 20 wherever you want to take him. I mean, I'm taking him 2 picks later than Daniel Jeremiah had him, so he's still within that range of outcome of top 20 picks. So I don't have any problem with this. You're going to get... did I make this? I might have made this pick last week instead of at pick 11. I think I did make this pick last week. So yes, you're getting Max Crosby some help. Malcolm Kuntz took a big step this year, so you could have went edge, but I think that with Dallas Turner off the board, Jared Verse off the board, the next edge guy... Oh, well, no, you could have go Liatu Latu. That would be a fine pick. That might be the best pick, to be honest, because a report that came out of the Senior Bowl is that the medicals aren't as big of a deal. And if the medicals aren't as big of a deal, you could potentially get a top 10 player on discount. So that's just something to think about. Saints at pick 14. Derek Carr threw an absolute fit about the quarterback reports. So I think they restructured Derek Carr. I'm not sure if they did, but that's Derek Carr being... I do not like Derek Carr. I think he's such a family friendly here. Pick 14. I think you're going to go Talisi Fuaga. Same pick as last week. Talisi Fuaga, I think he's probably the best right tackle in the class. Underrated pass protector, absolute mover in the run game. I think it's going to be interesting to see how this Saints team gets set up offensively next year, because Michael Thomas is not Michael Thomas anymore. Chris Olave, I think we have expectations that are up here, and is Derek Carr holding him back? Is he just not that good? I don't know anymore. He's hurt a lot, it feels like. That I could be completely wrong about. But I do know that you need tackles. So regardless, you got your right tackle in the future. I think Talisi Fuaga is one of the safest picks in the draft. Could be wrong. But usually when I label a guy as a safe pick, historically, since I've been doing this for 3 years, they are very safe picks. This being year 3. Colts at pick 15. I think corner's still the pick, but with Terrion Arnold here, definitely... I mean, this is CB1. I've seen him go as early as pick 5, I think. So, he's not the level of Devin Witherspoon, which is why I wouldn't take him pick 5, but he's really, really good. Easily one of the smoothest movers in the class. Just some guys just move different, man. And when you're... I mean, I don't know how big he is off the top of my head. I think he's like 6'1", 185, 195. When you could just move so effortlessly, it's just like, God, you forget how good the league is. Like, the athletes in the league. Anyway, pick 16, Seattle. So, I took this guy out of my mock draft a few weeks ago. I had him going to the Arizona Cardinals. I sent the pick to someone who is an Arizona Cardinals fan. And he said to go edge instead. And I'm very upset that I took him out because he absolutely dominated the Senior Bowl. I mean, arguably the biggest riser of the entire Senior Bowl. Dominated at center, dominated at guard. Look how high he got moved up the PFF board. Jackson Powers Johnson. This dude, oh my God. For Seattle that needs such bad interior line help, you're getting someone... I would probably keep him at center because you have the flexibility of how bad your interior offensive line is. Just keep him at center. But know you could play him at guard in an emergency. I'm just upset that I took him out because that would have been such a good receipt to have from 3 weeks ago. Anyway, pick 17. So the more I thought about this pick, I hated it. Not the pick that I made. I just hate the options here, given the circumstances of the Jaguars. What I would do, and since I'm not doing trades, maybe this will happen in a later mock draft, when I do trades, you can't let Josh Allen leave. You just can't have that happen, especially after I think he had, 17 and a half sack season. You cannot let him out the door. Calvin Ridley you're probably going to let walk, because if you extend him, you have to give Atlanta a second-round pick. I would trade this pick for T. Higgins. And you could say pick 17 is too high. I think, my memory could be failing me here, but I think pick 17 is exactly what got traded for A.J. Brown. And I think T. Higgins is exactly what Trevor Lawrence needs to, find his way in the NFL. I'm a huge Trevor Lawrence fan. I think there's a lot of quarterbacks I would take him over if I was starting a franchise. I think he just needs that guy, man. I mean, Calvin Ridley was supposed to be it. Calvin Ridley was kind of it. But the offense never really had an identity. It wasn't like a Doug Pete. It wasn't like the offense 2022 where they went to the playoffs where they were so in sync and balanced. This year it was kind of just they had a terrible draft last year. Anton Harrison, I liked that pick. But then everything after that was kind of a disaster. I think T. Higgins is the move here, to just trade this pick for T. Higgins. But because I didn't do trade, I stuck with Latu. You're getting elite edge. You're still getting elite edge play. I mean, go back and watch some of the reps from Latu at the Senior Bowl. He has an NFL pro level skill set. How do I put this? His ability to counter move is so far ahead of where it should be, or compared to anybody else in this draft. I'm telling you, this is a lock top 10 pick that is falling because he had to medically retire twice, which is a valid reason for him to fall. That's not what I'm saying, but you are getting an elite edge rusher here. And you pair that with Josh Allen, who just had a 17.5 sack season. That could help your poverty secondary, because you're going to have two people getting the quarterback at light speed. So, anyway. So, I mentioned trading this pick. So, the Bengals would actually pick back-to-back here. But because that's not the case, we're going to go with J.C. Latham again. I'm not a huge J.C. Latham fan. I said it last week, or last mock draft. You're going to lose Jonah Williams in free agency, so you need a right tackle. The offensive tackle class, as it stands right now in free agency, is pretty terrible, from what I looked at. The more I thought about this, too, you're probably going to franchise tag T. Higgins, so I wouldn't worry about receiver here, unless you trade T. Higgins. And if you trade him to the Jaguars, you're picking back-to-back. So you could go Latham, Brian Thomas Jr., and just carry on. You still have Jamar Chase, so it's not like you're going to cry over it. I mean, Jamar Chase, he's Jamar Chase, so there's not much to say there. But I don't think finding a T. Higgins replacement, if you need one, is going to be that difficult in this class. The Rams, so I think last week last mock draft we went Amarius Mims. This week, I'm going to shout out someone who I was high on originally. I took him in the first round last mock draft, is Quinyon Mitchell. I think the case between Quinyon Mitchell and Jackson Powers-Johnson for the biggest riser of the Senior Bowl week, it's between these two. Quinyon Mitchell literally made a case for cornerback 1. Nobody got opened against him except for Roman Wilson, who we'll talk about later. I think last week we went Jared Verse. It was Jared Verse or Amarius Mims. I cannot remember. But the edge at this point, it's just too. The value's not there, in my opinion. And getting an elite corner in a pretty bad secondary room is always a good thing to have, especially for contending teams. For teams that are in contention, I think you can never have enough corners. We just see them get hurt so often. They're in a passing league with so much stud wide receiver play. Corners are just not a bad thing to have. And at the next pick, we're going to talk about another riser from the Senior Bowl, which is why I waited to do this until after the Senior Bowl. Tyler Guyton. Tyler Guyton was viewed as a fringe first rounder a few weeks ago during my last mock draft. Now he is solidified. He is going round 1. People are saying he is the most athletic tackle over Olu Fashanu and Joe Alt, which honestly I don't disagree with. The thing with Guyton and why he's only going at pick 20 is because he is so raw. He is not... How do I put this? He pushes people, he doesn't block them. Like, he just wins with athleticism and being a freak. If he can learn the tech, if he could polish, I don't want to say learn because he's obviously a first round player, like he knows what he's doing. But if he could polish his technique to get to where it needs to be, and you pair that with his athleticism, you're going to have a player who was similar to Andrew Thomas coming out a few years back in 2020, where it's like, this kid is a freak athlete. Andrew Thomas, though, had way better technique coming out and was viewed as having better technique. But when Andrew Thomas at the NFL level learned to trust his athleticism, but also win with technique, you have a top 3 left tackle in the NFL. Tyler Guyton could be that at right tackle, I think. He is that freaky of an athlete. Pick 21 is the Dolphins. Last week, we went edge. This week, with how the boards fall in, or not last week, last mock. I usually do these every week. That's why I keep saying last week. With how the board's fallen, I really like the idea of Troy Fautanu. The issue I have with this pick, though, last week we went corner. We went Kool-Aid McKinstry, that's right. The issue I have with this pick is the system that Mike McDaniels has put in place in Miami. You get the ball out so fast that it really protects bad offensive line play. I mean, this team literally, everybody keeps thinking like, oh, you got to draft offensive line in Miami. You got to draft offensive line in Miami. This team was averaging, I think, the 3rd most passing yards in the NFL. So, like, really, is it that bad? Or is it bad enough where you have to address it in the first round? I'm going with Troy Fautanu for flexibility. It's a good pick. It's a safe pick. He's in air raid. He's coming from an air raid system, so you know he's going to fit right into the NFL, especially in Miami. I just still kind of push back, like, is it the biggest need for Miami over corner, over edge, especially with Jalen Phillips tearing his ACL, stuff like that. So, I mean, food for thought. And then Eagles at pick 22. The corners are falling. Cooper DeJean, I thought about. Nate Wiggins, I thought about. But, and I think they're better players than the player who I'm about to pick, but Howie Roseman loves to address the trenches, which is why the Eagles are so successful for the past few years. Because they always have good D-line play, they always have good offensive line play. That is more important than anything else in football besides getting a Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen if you could find one. But I went with Amarius Mims because this is a player who has elite upside, can be an elite right tackle in the NFL. He does not have to play right away. I think I mentioned it last week. This is the perfect landing spot for Amarius Mims because he does not have to play right away. He's going to learn behind a Hall of Fame right tackle. And then next year, when he's ready to play and asked to play, if Lane Johnson leaves or retires, he'll probably retire when his contract's up, unless he signs a team friendly or something. Like, Amarius Mims is going to be thrown into the fire and then viewed as a bust. Pick 23, it's the Texans. We're going Johnny Newton again. I think that same thing. Just keep building this roster. Take the best player available. Your defensive line took so many steps, especially with edge and stopping the run. Get a disruptive interior defensive lineman in Johnny Newton. Help out your head coach, who's a defensive-minded head coach, and run it back. You kept your whole coaching staff. Run it back. Get better. Do the same things. I don't think you need a receiver. Like I said, Nico Collins is a wide receiver 1. People will say, oh, it's CJ Stroud, which obviously plays a huge hand in it, which is why Nico Collins broke out in year 3 as opposed to year 1. But quarterback play and individual metrics, yards per route run, separation rate. Nico Collins has been elite under our noses this entire time. It just took a quarterback who knew how to play quarterback to make him break out. And a helpful wide receiver, too, in Tank Dell. That's not a knock on Tank Dell. I'm just saying that helps your wide receiver one a lot. Dallas at pick 24. I went with Jordan Morgan. Replaced Terrence Steele. He was not good. But, yeah. I mean, Jordan Morgan kind of had a bad senior week, but in my opinion, having a good senior week is should swing the pendulum more than having a bad senior week. Because at the end of the day, it's 1 week. You could have an off week. You could be sick. But to have a good senior week, you're silencing a lot of things. And we'll talk about Chris Braswell, someone who moved down boards from his senior week, but for reasons that aren't going to tank his stock. I mean, someone who probably did the most damage to their stock was Tez Walker, and he's probably still going around 2. He's just going at the back end of round 2 now. So I'm still a huge Jordan Morgan fan. Yeah, I just love Jordan Morgan. Just a grinder. Pick 25 is the Packers, and I went with Cooper DeJean. A lot of Packers were really upset. A lot of Packers fans were upset I took offensive lineman. I still think David Bakhtiari needs to get replaced. He's just so unreliable. And then he's probably going to do something stupid like ask to get traded to the Jets. But this is your Eric Stokes replacement. There's a chance that Cooper DeJean can play safety. I think he can play safety. I don't think he needs to. I think you could just draft a safety in round 2 and let Cooper DeJean play along on the other side of Jair Alexander and be fine. Pick 26 is the Bucks. And with this pick, I went edge. I think the Buccaneers have quietly developed a very solid defensive line, especially with adding Kalijah Kancey in the first round last year. Joe Tryon-Shoyinka has not really been what you hoped. Braylon Trice had the most pressures in college football last year. The other choice I went with, or was going to go with, I think I went with this last week, was corner, or I went with guard last week. I think it's still interior offensive line or corner. I kind of like going offensive line, but the reason I went edge is because this corner in offensive line class is so deep. I forget who I took in round 2, but I think we covered it. The Cardinals at pick 27. Unfortunately, there's not an edge here that I really would like to take. We'll talk about Chris Braswell, but and there's no interior defensive lineman I like to take, so I just went with the best player available, which was Nate Wiggins. Sterling Thomas, I think, is one of your starting corners. I mean, when I looked at the Cardinals roster, it was like when you start your Madden Ultimate Team and you just have bronze players everywhere. That is how bad. And then you get that 180 from like that one pack you get. That's Kyler Murray, except he's better than 80. And then the rest of the team is just garbage. Obviously not the whole rest of the team is garbage, but you get my point. Bills at pick 28. My personal rankings, I have Troy Franklin as the next wide receiver up. I actually have a few wide receivers before I take Brian Thomas. But the upside of Brian Thomas is going to get him taken early. And I'm saying early as in pick 28, but there's a chance he goes in the late teens, mid-teens. Like his upside is that good. The hesitancy for me is analytical profile is not that great. The film is super, super fun. I would like to see him with a better plan off the line of scrimmage. He doesn't do great against press coverage unless he's running a go route or a fade. He had a lot of success running slot fades. He had a lot of success running down the sideline. He was able to attack the intermediate off of when he got a free release. If he can develop more of a route tree, he will be a very dominant player because he does things so well, like dominate the catch point. He could have probably had like over 20 touchdowns this season, potentially if he wasn't playing with Malik Neighbors, but also playing with Malik Neighbors helped him. But I just wanted to make that point because I'm almost done with my wide receiver rankings. I'm gonna post that video soon. Anyways, Lions, Kool-Aid McKinstry. I think this is Kool-Aid McKinstry is the definition of recency bias. Kool-Aid McKinstry had the same season he had last year. He came into the year as a top 10 pick. He is now being picked at 29 for no reason. The reason he's being picked at pick 29 is because teams had to target away from him. They had to target Terrion Arnold, who took advantage of the opportunity and had an elite year. Now people think Terrion Arnold is cornerback 1. He probably is. But Kool-Aid McKinstry is still corner 2 or corner 3, but because of what happened to him this year, he's going to fall down draft boards. It's just what happens. And the season's going to start, and it's going to be like, damn, how did Kool-Aid McKinstry fall this far? Sorry for cussing, family friendly. But, shout out to Sketch. If you don't know, watch Sketch on TikTok. He is a riot. Anyways, pick 30, Ravens. I went receiver last mock draft, but I think with who's left, honest to God, I was this close to taking Ladd McConkey. But I didn't do it because I think what would be best for the Ravens, like, dynamic is you have Odell in the slot. He's 100% gone. You have Rashad Bateman, who's getting a lot better. Quietly getting a lot better. I think you can keep Rashad Bateman for another year. You probably don't franchise tag him. But Ladd McConkey would be a true slot. And I think Zay Flowers might actually be the best if he plays in the slot. Not because he was bad on the outside. I just think in that system, he will dominate from the slot. So I didn't want to take another slot receiver here. I didn't really like the fit of Troy Franklin. So I went with the next, or the biggest need, in Enos Rakestraw. I don't think Matabuke walks. That's why I didn't even think about D lineman. Like, you're gonna sign him. That probably is your biggest priority free agency signing right there. So I went with corner. Start rebuilding the secondary because it's starting to fall apart. Chiefs at pick 31. This is still Troy Franklin, one of my favorite receivers in the class. I cannot wait for the 40 testing between Troy Franklin and Xavier Worthy because I don't know who's faster, and they are both freaky fast. Pick 32 is the 49ers. I went with a big riser from the Senior Bowl here. I didn't just do this because he is a big riser. A lot of reports I read was there's a lot of first round hype around this player, which is why I did this. It wasn't because, oh, this guy had a good week. Like, I didn't. Everybody who is taken in the first round was still viewed as a first round pick before the Senior Bowl week. Some people pushed people out of the first round, but I'm not reaching in the first round for anybody that I don't think is a first round. This would be the biggest reach, but I don't think it is because of how many people view him as a first round pick now, and that is Darius Robinson from Missouri. I don't know if I would personally take him here, but this is not what I would do. I think at 6'5", I mean, he's just a unit. He was like the biggest player on the field at all times. He is gigantic, except for T'Vondre Sweat. But this is and now we're going into round 2. I'm going to speed through round 2 because this video is already 38 minutes. So I'm not going to go super in depth. But this is a pick. I'll show you the text from my friend months ago, probably a month ago. I have had this pick penciled in because if this kid goes here, he will catch a million passes. And he also dominated the Senior Bowl. This is a receiver. I can show you my receiver rankings that I've had posted for over a month now. 2 months now. Ladd McConkey. Ladd McConkey is exactly what Bryce Young needs to be successful or to find a sense of comfortability. Comfortability? Is that a word? In the passing offense. You have Adam Thielen, but this is someone who dominated the Senior Bowl, separates like nobody else, is just surefire reliable. I love Ladd McConkey. I think I have him in my rankings as wide receiver 6. He is so good, and he gets so slept on because you have Keon Coleman, you have these receivers that we've already taken, or the receivers that haven't been taken yet. You have Keon Coleman, Adonai Mitchell, Tez Walker, Xavier Legette, Ricky Pearsall, Xavier Worthy, Jalen Polk, all these players who are getting hyped up, but we're overlooking what's right in front of us. which is Ladd McConkey. And then at pick 34, I think what makes the most sense is to take someone who, like Jaden Daniels, unquestioned, proven fact, statistical fact, was the best deep ball passer in college football. Get someone who can take the top off of defenses and does it better than anybody else coming out of college in Xavier Worthy, who is my wide receiver. I think he's my wide receiver 6. Wide receiver 5 or 6. Spoiler. But anyways, Cardinals at pick 35. This has to be interior defensive line. We didn't get to address it in the first round. I thought about going Chris Jenkins in the first round, but I didn't know if that was too rich. So I want to take someone who's going to be a foundational piece of the offensive line that I know will succeed. He may not be an every down player, but he will unquestionably have a positive impact, almost bust-proof impact on this defensive line, and that is T'Vondre Sweat. Came in, he's listed as 6'4", 362. He didn't weigh in at the combine, at the Senior Bowl. There were some reports that say he looked like he was playing at 380, which is wild. That, to me, tells me he's not going to play every down. You don't play every down at 380 in the NFL. It's too big. It's too much weight to move around. So Washington is the next pick, and there's just so many needs in Washington. Particularly, I think if you're going to draft a quarterback in round 1, you have, I think 4 or 5 top 100 picks. Your offensive line is poverty. Get the second best center in the class in Zach Frazier. Zach Frazier is a very, 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 very good center. I think that my ideal pick for Washington before the Senior Bowl was Jack Sparrow Johnson. You're not getting him anymore. So we're going to go with Zach Frazier. I don't think you need receiver. Like Terry McLaurin is gonna have a career this year. I know that for a fact. You guys don't even have to win games for me to know that Terry McLaurin is going to absolutely explode this year. Because Drake May is the best quarterback he's ever played with. I mean, he hasn't even taken a snap, and you're gonna tell me that. I mean, go through the list. Who is better than Drake May? Terry McLaurin has played with. God, I just lost myself for a second. Pick 37 is the Chargers. And aside from Asante Samuel, secondary's trash. It is garbage. Garbage. So is the offensive line. I thought about going Christian Haynes here, but I went with Kamari Lassiter, and just talking about this out loud, I probably should have gone Christian Haynes because knowing Harbaugh, he's going to want to come in and fix this offensive line first thing, and you got no money. So, yeah. Pick 38 is the Titans, and you're hoping to get something out of Treylon Burks. So I didn't want to take that same type of receiver. I thought about going with Ricky Pearsall here because you need a slot receiver really bad. I don't know what happens with DeAndre Hopkins. I wanted to get someone who can separate quickly and help Will Levis out. So I went with someone, and this might be a reach, but I don't think it is. When it's said and done, is going to be. I went with Roman Wilson. Roman Wilson was uncoverable during the senior week. He was the only one that was winning against Quinyon Mitchell. Lightning fast, elite separator. He might be the best receiver on the Titans right away over Treylon Burks, who I really hope takes a step because I like Treylon Burks a lot. But anyways, pick 39, New York Giants. You're going to lose Adoree Jackson. Deonte Banks was very good this year. You have Cordell Flott. I'm a Giants fan, so we have Cordell Flott. I forget the rest. I can't. Anyways, we're gonna fix this. So we're gonna take one of my personal favorite players, TJ Tampa. I think he's either gonna go here or to the Chargers at pick 37. Just a really, really good physical, powerful man corner, elite closing speed. Gets hip to hip real fast, can recover. I love TJ Tampa. I love TJ. I just like hard-hitting corners, and TJ Tampa might be the hardest-hitting corner in the class. Chicago at pick 40. I double dip on offensive line because you're nothing matters right now. Like, you have to understand this, and this is what I think a lot of GMs don't even understand. And I'm not saying I'm smarter than GMs, but just look at what the successful organizations did. Like, a wise man once said, just listen to smart people. And just listen to people who know what they're talking about. Look at the organizations that drafted a quarterback and made them successful versus the ones that didn't. They, like, immediately, defense does not matter anymore, to a degree. They fixed the offensive line. They got a weapon. They did everything right. Look at the Bengals. The Bengals are still trying to fix their offensive line, but that was the first thing they addressed, aside from Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. T. Higgins was the first pick after Joe Burrow in the second round. I'm going to take another winner from the Senior Bowl week in Christian Haynes. Arguably the best interior offensive line, excluding Jackson Powers-Johnson, in the entire Senior Bowl. Just a lock top 50 pick. Probably a top 45 pick, in my opinion. Just an absolute competitive freak. I really want to go to the Senior Bowl next year, so please like, comment, subscribe. But there are little things that you have to listen for if you're not there in reports of like people getting hyped, like the players getting hyped up and showing that competitiveness after the drill. And Christian Haynes was one of those players that was just always hyped up, dominating reps. I think you put Drake May behind these two linemen with the weapons out there. I mean, you're setting yourself up for success. I really do think that. And as a Giants fan, I hate that, but this is not about the Giants. Packers at pick 41. I went with safety. I went with the best safety in the class in Cameron Kitchens. I just think that the offensive line is good. I think teams like the Packers, you don't have to panic about offensive line because they always have someone on deck that is ready to go in development. That's just why the Packers are always in playoff contention. They may not be in Super Bowl contention, but their offensive line is always good enough to keep them in playoff contention. It's fact. Vikings at pick 42. We did do trades, but these two players I think will go before pick 42 because someone will trade up for both of them. I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. We're going to go with Chris Braswell. Like I said, you don't know what's happening with your edge room. Are you going to pay Danielle Hunter? You're going to let DJ Wonnum walk. You got $26 million in cap space. Chris Braswell comes in. I think he's an immediate impact player. The knock on him was he's a power rusher. That is what he does. That is how he wins in college. The expectation might have been too high for him to come in and just power through the Senior Bowl. It didn't happen. He played well. He is a freak athlete. The tape is there. The tape is out there. The tape is really good. But he did not power through players like anticipated. And that's why people are moving him from the back end of the first to the top end of the second. Which, again, like I mentioned, having a bad Senior Bowl week isn't the end of the world as in comparison to having a great Senior Bowl week. But anyways, this is where I was going. The Atlanta Falcons at pick 43. I think this is where J.J. McCarthy comes off the board. I like J.J. McCarthy a lot. I think everybody who says, like, oh, he didn't have to do anything in college, da-da-da-da-da. There are about 3 or 4 plays a game where J.J. McCarthy gives you exactly what you're saying he doesn't do. And I think you saw that against Washington. I think you saw that a lot in the college playoffs. And apparently his IQ is off the charts. His football IQ is off the charts. I think that J.J. McCarthy is quietly very, very good. And I think when it's said and done, he should have gone in the first round. I don't know if he will, but I do think he should have been selected in the first round. Because, I mean, like, what's the tangible, like, again, like, I just keep using Brock Purdy as the example, is if you have a good team around you, you don't need to be Josh Allen. What are the tangible differences between Brock Purdy as an athlete and J.J. McCarthy as an athlete? We don't know how they are as processors in comparison at the NFL level, but they both have similar arm talents. They both have similar arm strengths. They're both very... I mean, we know Brock Purdy has very high IQ. J.J. McCarthy reportedly has an amazing IQ. And the analytics are on my Twitter. I linked them in the last video. I'll link them in this video. J.J. McCarthy's good, man. Like, I like McCarthy a lot. I think he needs to go to a situation where it's preset. like Atlanta, who has a top 10 offensive line, who has a Drake London, who has a Kyle Pitts, who has a Bijan Robinson, like JJ McCarthy on Atlanta is going to make a run for that division. I thought that they would do it last year. I picked Atlanta to win, but it's hard to do that when your coach is an active terrorist. Like, I don't know what else to tell you. Pick 44 is the Raiders. This is where Michael Penix comes off the board. I think Michael Penix might be one of the most overrated prospects in the NFL in the draft, personally, because people have this conception that Michael Penix is this elite downfield passer who's super accurate. The numbers are there. That is not true. It's not even true on film. Go back and watch some of these games, and Michael Penix just misses people. And I'm not saying, like, oh, he didn't make the read. Like, he just does not make the throw. And if you look at the numbers, they back me up. I'm telling you, Michael Penix, one of the strongest arms in the class. I'm not denying that. I think he has 34.5-inch arms, something crazy. That's why his throwing motion looks weird, is because he's got crazy, crazy arms. And he's lefty, so it automatically looks weird. But I think this is like the perfect range for Penix. I don't know if someone will trade up for Penix. Probably because he's a quarterback, but he's not as good as you think. I'm telling you, he's not as good. Watch the film, look at the numbers. It's not as good as you think. And I'm not saying, oh, he threw for a billion passing yards. I'm not talking about those numbers. I'm talking about the accuracy numbers, the yards per attempt, the stuff that is on my Twitter. Go look at my Twitter. It's in the corner. It's right there. Go look. Saints at pick 45, similar to a different team we were just talking about, the Titans. I think that this team needs a slot guy, like a slot receiver is so valuable in the NFL, and people act like it's not. Like, I would rather have my wide receiver one be an elite separator with game-breaking speed, and then a dependable slot receiver than have Keon Coleman, who could catch a contested catch ball, because that's so not reliable in the NFL. Someone who's getting open with sure hands is just what you need to be successful. And Ricky Pearsall is that. I mean, everybody remembers that crazy one-handed catch he had. What people don't remember is he got absolutely drilled on that play and just got up. Like that, he dominated at the Senior Bowl. He was like Ladd McConkey light at the Senior Bowl, uncoverable, elite separator, making contested catches, the whole nine. I mean, Ricky Pearsall, I think the PFF guys had him as pick 33. They love Ricky Pearsall. I like Ricky Pearsall. I don't have him that high. I think Ladd McConkey's better than him. I'm doing the rest of the class breakdown on the numbers, but the tape is there for Pearsall. I mean, dude, he just gets open, and he's so reliable. I think he had 0 drops this year. And he catches in traffic. Like, he's going to be a good player, and I don't think he's slot exclusive player. I think he can play outside. Colts at pick 46. I mean, they just love their elite freak athletes. So I went with Chop Robinson. I don't think receiver's as big as of a need as it looks. Because you have players like Michael Pittman's coming back. He's going to come back. Josh Downs is really good. I like Josh Downs a lot. And I'm trying to think of who the third receiver is, but additions could be made to that role in free agency. Like, you have your slot guy, you have your wide receiver one in Michael Pittman, who's very good. He had a career year with Minshew this year. He just didn't have the touchdowns. The Giants are back up on the clock, and I wanted to shout out this player because he has tackle flexibility in case they move off of Evan Neal, but also can play left guard at a really, really high level. And that's Dominic Pooney from Kansas. He's another player who just dominated the Senior Bowl. They had him all over the place. Guard, center, left guard, right guard, center, tackle. And I think he had his best reps at guard. He's like 6'5", 320, I think. Absolute unit. Great in pass protection. Just a great pass protecting offensive lineman. The Giants want to be able to attack downfield. They need the guys up front to get it done. And I'm not exaggerating. If you're a Giants fan, go look at my Twitter. I'll link it in the comments. I crunched the numbers. The Giants had the worst pass blocking offensive line of all time, and it was like of all time is honestly an understatement for how bad it was weeks 1 through 5. And the numbers I pulled only account for offensive line play, so not the quarterback running into sacks, because Daniel Jones did take a lot of sacks. But it was the worst unit ever. Like, ever. So, check that out. Anyways, pick 48, Jacksonville. I went with Graham Barton here. I think Graham Barton, he's listed as left tackle. He's probably going to play left guard at the NFL level. I think just keep protecting Joe Burrow. Figure out what your identity as an offense is. I think you got to go back to run the ball, run the ball first and then pass the ball. I mean, it's tough to say that with, like, you have Trevor Lawrence, so obviously you want to throw the ball 40 times, but, like, Doug Peterson is the head coach. Doug Peterson builds successful run offenses. Just build the run offense, build a rushing attack. It's late. That's why I keep calling it a run offense. It's 9:12 when I'm recording this. You got to find an identity, because that was the biggest difference, in my opinion, from the Jags of last year to the of 2022 to 2023. They had no identity. Their defense was terrible. That defense was really gritty in 2022. I think of the Ravens game. That was such a marquee win for Trevor Lawrence in that unit, and it just did not follow up on that at all. Pick 49 is the Bengals. This player could have gone higher. I think I have a top 40 grade on him. But Ja'Tavion Sanders, dude. Ja'Tavion Sanders is a game-breaking tight end. He's not as sexy as Brock Bowers, not even close, but, like, I would be really interested to see, maybe I'll pull these numbers. I would be interested to see how he stacks up against Michael Mayer, Sam Laporta, and maybe I'll throw Kincaid in there, but I wanted to throw in the second-round guys. Maybe Trey McBride I'll throw in there, too, because he was a second-round pick. Because Ja'Tavion Sanders, like, is just, can run every route, is deceivingly fast, and just can, is just someone you have to account for. And he's a really good run blocker. Like, he does everything well, man. I love Ja'Tavion Sanders. Some people have had him in the first round the past few weeks. I don't think that, but at pick 49 for the Bengals, who have lacked a tight end for literally as long as I can remember, you finally got one, and it's a damn good one. Family-friendly show. Sorry for cussing. But anyways, Philly at pick 50. I went with the best corner I could think of on the board. And that's Mikey Sainristil from Michigan. Probably the best slot corner in the entire draft. Something Philly desperately needs. That secondary desperately needs help. I also thought there's a second. Well, I'll talk about that with a second Philly pick, because the Eagles have two from the Saints trade. I think the Saints that was the Chris Olave trade. I think. I'm not totally sure. The Rams at pick 51. There's a lot of ways I could have went with this pick, but I thought, like, maybe let's just diversify this offense a little bit more. You have Puka, you have Cooper Kupp, but let's get, like, a dominator on the outside. So I went with Xavier Legette. He just had a pretty weird Senior Bowl. Like, he didn't dominate. I wasn't the highest on Legette anyways. I forget where I had him in my initial, like, post-college football championship rankings. But he didn't dominate the way you expected him to. And the reason why it affected Legette for me more than other players is, like, this is a player where, like, you're expecting DK Metcalf type play, where, like, it's going to be uber physical, he's going to run past you, he's going to dominate you at the catch point, and you just did not consistently see that from Legette during the Senior Bowl. Like, again, I wasn't there, but from what I was reading in the clips I watched, like, it kind of was let down, but I think he's still a second-round pick. Like, he still does a lot well, don't get me wrong, but, like, anyways, pick 52. Steelers. I went with someone who I think can be linebacker one. Also had a really good Senior Bowl. And that was Peyton Wilson. I like Peyton Wilson a lot. Just a really good player. Just a solid player. Could have went with Edger and Cooper from Texas A&M, but I wanted to shout out Peyton Wilson. So if you don't like this pick, just imagine it's Edger and James if you wanted him instead of Peyton Wilson. Dolphins, With this pick, I didn't really know what to do here. Not that I didn't know what to do here. It's just like I wanted to go corner really bad, but I really didn't want to force the pick because I don't like Kalen Carson here. The next corner I thought of was DJ James or Chris Abrams-Drain, who is kind of really slept on, and Max Melton, but I think Max Melton is confirmed third-round guy. Kalen King was in every highlight at the Senior Bowl in an Eli Apple way, like not the way you want to be put in a highlight. So I went with a receiver, actually, in Devontae Walker. Tez Walker was separating fine, was getting open fine at the Senior Bowl, not like Roman Wilson or McConkey or Pearsall, but like the way he does on tape. The thing that would like kind of shocked a lot of people from the reactions I was watching or seeing is the drops, man. Like he just dropped everything. Again, I'm not going to knock him for that because on the tape, in game, the drops aren't really that big of an issue, but like the Senior Bowl is bad. So that's definitely going to hurt his stock. But I still think the athlete is a second-round pick, in my opinion. Philly at pick 54 again. I went safety here. And I take the second best safety in the class in Tyler Nubin. I think you just got to build a secondary. It's so bad. It is so bad. And that could have been your defensive coordinator. I don't know. But I just know your corners are old and your safeties are bad. Yeah. Pick 55 was Cleveland. There just needs to be a receiver, too, on this team. I was so high on Cedric Tillman. So high on Cedric Tillman. But I fell for the trap that I refuse to fall for Keon Coleman. In that I'm not going to fall in love with these contested catch 50-50 ball guys who do nothing else. Cedric Tillman, in my opinion, was better than Keon Coleman. I don't know if that's true. But I just like Tillman so much. I still think Tillman's going to be good, but he didn't play that well this year. And then Elijah Moore was not what you hoped. I had really high hopes for Elijah Moore, especially for fantasy. But I went with what they're looking for, because obviously by drafting Tillman, you want that big body guy who could go up and catch the ball. And I think that one of the best players in this draft at doing that, aside from Brian Thomas, aside from Rome Odunze, is Adonai Mitchell. I think Adonai Mitchell actually does very well at winning at the catch point and winning in the red zone. I don't think he does much as a route runner. He has pretty good short area quickness, but not the most refined route runner. I never believed he was a first-round pick like people had him. I still don't believe he's a first-round pick. I think he's actually fallen down from how many risers have come up from the Senior Bowl and whatnot. But Cowboys at pick 56, I went with Jonathan Brooks. Jonathan Brooks right now is my RB1. It's very close between... I actually pulled some of the numbers today on Twitter. I think it's my last tweet of the day. I didn't include Trey Benson, but the numbers between Jonathan Brooks, Jalen Wright, and Bucky Irving, I am very high on Bucky Irving. I think Bucky Irving is going to be so good. He is, and I'll tell you where I'm bad, like thinking Cedric Tillman was going to be like a top 5 receiver in the class. I'm pretty good with running backs, and I love Bucky Irving, and the numbers are there. Jalen Wright, same thing. Jalen Wright's really, really good. You could say, like, oh, Tennessee's gimmicky, but not really for running backs. For receivers and quarterbacks, yeah, but you still got to be pretty good as a running back to be successful, even in Tennessee. And Jalen Wright was averaging 7.4 yards per carry, so, like... Anyways, yeah, but with this pick, with Jonathan Brooks, I think, is my RB1 still. The ACL tear is unfortunate, but he was balling out before that. And I think with how kids come back these days from these ACL tears, it's not as big of a deal. He'll probably be ready for training camp, believe it or not. Maybe rookie minicamp. And I just think Dallas is a team that needs... Like, they couldn't run the ball against Green Bay at all. They abandoned the run so fast, but you get a player like Jonathan Brooks, who is a 3-down back, and you're not going to keep Tony Pollard, but you have Rico Dowdle as like your change of pace back. I think Jonathan Brooks could be your guy, and as a Giants fan, I really hope you don't take him, but he is such a good player. He is a phenomenal player. And then at pick 57, I actually went running back again with Jalen Wright. I think A.J. Dillon is just like the worst running back ever. And I love Aaron Jones, but he's hurt a lot. Who knows how long he's going to be relevant. I mean, running backs just fall off so steep and so harshly. Like, I think getting a fresh guy in Jalen Wright in a team that's, like, honestly very well built. Like, people think taking running backs in round 2 is kind of a luxury pick, but, like, I don't see the value at offensive tackle right here, to be honest. I like Patrick Paul a lot. Maybe that would be my other pick. And then I think at guard, Christian Mahogany is definitely in play, but, like, this Packers offense needs to be able to run the ball, and Jalen Wright is such a fun player. He's so good. I cannot wait to see his 40 time, because that's probably going to be the deciding factor over him or Jonathan Brooks. I think Bucky Irving should be in the conversation, but he's just not, and I think that's a huge mistake by everybody, except me, because I have him there. Listen to your boy. Pick 58 is the Buccaneers. This is where I went with Patrick Paul. I think just keep building the trenches. Like, you got to establish the foundation. Like, especially with Baker. Baker always has success in the NFL if he's behind the good offensive line. Look at what he was in Cleveland, the good years and the bad years. Look at what he was in Carolina when it was a bad offensive line, as we know. And then look at him in Tampa, which had a very decent offensive line. Like, keep Baker upright and in a pocket, and good things will happen. I love Patrick Paul. I think he's such a good player. Texans. I went linebacker here. It's always weird for me to take linebackers because I really have a hard time gauging their value in today's NFL, because you have, like, look back at the 2022 Super Bowl with the Bengals and the Rams. Those were the 2 worst linebacker units in the NFL. So, like, it's tough for me to really gauge how important taking a linebacker is. Now, the game-changing linebackers like Roquan Smith, their presence is definitely felt. And I think Edgerrin James, like, I think the Texans' offensive line is fine. Like, the other pick I was honestly thinking about was, I thought about taking Adisa Isaac to play on the edge. And then I also thought about, where's he at? Thought about Bucky Irving, man. Like, he's so good. I don't know why people aren't talking about him. It's not like he's mini. He's 5'11", 200 pounds. That's fine size. Where's he at? Golly, how far down is he? This is a travesty. Yeah, dude, he's 5'10", 195. That's fine. I mean, he's probably realistically a little bit lighter. Maybe a little bit smaller, but look at Jahmyr Gibbs. I'm just saying. Just saying. Bills that pick, who did I go here? Bills that pick, what pick are we on? 60. I went with Chris Jenkins. I think the interior defensive line needs help bad. End of story. Then for the Lions, I went with, this is where I went Adisa Isaac. I love Adisa Isaac. I don't know why he's not getting more hype. He's like a mini Chop Robinson in that defensive line. Needs help. Like, you need another edge rusher aside from Aiden Hutchinson. Please get him help. You could have also went interior defensive line. I like Braden Fisk, but he's 297. Like, that's very light for an interior defensive line, I feel like. So I didn't think that, like, it was, I mean, he might be that guy. To be honest, I haven't done enough watched enough film on him to even say. The other guy I thought about was Brandon Dorless. But also, he's just 290. I feel like this is really light for it. Maybe the interior defensive linemen are just lighter than I thought. But, like, you have Tavondre Sweat, who's 380. And it's like, am I really going to take an interior defensive lineman who's 80 pounds lighter? Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm just an idiot for that. But the Ravens, I'm taking one guy that I'm really, really high on. And that is Brandon Rice from USC. Displayed a great physicality at the Senior Bowl. Separated really, really well. Had some really good reps. I love Brandon Rice. And he's got a pedigree. So, like, I don't think you could go wrong with this pick. And then pick 63 is the Chiefs. I went with Jonah Ellis to get some more edge help because contending teams can just never have enough edge support. And then San Francisco at pick 40. Where are we at? 64? I forgot who I took here. Oh, no, I didn't. I went with Austin Booker from Kansas. Back-to-back edges to end the round. The reason why I have Jonah Ellis so low is he's just also so light, man. He's got to gain. I think he's like 245 to play edge. That's lighter than linebackers. I mean, that's... I wish I could click on the... Hold on. See if I can pull this up. Like, for perspective. Jonah Ellis is 245. Yeah. Austin Booker, also 245, but he's 6'6". I just want to see some of these edge rushers. Chop Robinson, 250. So maybe edge rushers are also just lighter than I thought. No, that's not true. I know that's not true. Let's see. Jared Verse, 260. $242. Maybe they are just lighter than I thought. I just feel like edge rushers are usually around like 265, 275. Maybe I'm wrong. But anyways, that's going to do it for this video. I hope you enjoyed the 2-rounder. Please follow me on Twitter because a lot of good stuff happens on Twitter. A lot of my content goes out there. I dive deep into the analytics because I don't always have the time to make videos. But please check out my Twitter. Like, comment, subscribe, support the channel. It means a lot. And I'll catch you in the next video. Peace.